Well, hello and welcome back to the podcast. Before I introduce you to today's guest, a longtime client and good friend of mine, somebody very special to me, and our topic of feminine productivity, I just really want to thank you for being here. I have been hearing from people from many different aspects of my life that you are really enjoying the podcast. I spoke to a woman last week who said that she's listened to every episode 4 times. You have no idea what that does for me. It's an incredible validation of what I've been trying to create over the last couple of years in preparing for this podcast. One woman said that this has been a life raft and a lifeline as she is moving from some turbulence in her life and trying to figure out what her new evolution is. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Feel free to let me know in the reviews what you want to hear more of. If you haven't subscribed yet, of course, please do. All of that makes a difference in people finding the Fabienne Show. And just really, it's with great gratitude that I introduced this episode to you. And before I do so, you'll hear when I'm speaking with my guest Mia at some point that I refer to the fact that I spent this summer really in a bit of hibernation here in the south of France, figuring out what I want to put forth to you as a direct, I don't know how to say this, as a direct lead in, lead out of this podcast. And it's a new offering that I'm working on, a membership for women, a way for you to have a taste of what it's like to work with me and feel close to me. It's for you if you feel that there's something more for you than what you're currently experiencing in your work, in your life. If you want things to be easier and more aligned and more authentic and more enriching, that's what I'm working on right now. So I just wanted to let you know that if you're curious about this and you're not already on my email subscriber list, you can go to boldheart.com. And on the homepage, you'll see a section that's in yellow, and it probably says something like, here's where you become an insider. And just make sure to put your name and email in there. This is where the email newsletter is where I share insider content with my inner circle. So if you'd like to be part of my inner circle, that's how you join the inner circle. So let's talk about today's episode. I'm thrilled to introduce you to Mia Moran. Mia is a best-selling author, a podcaster, and the visionary behind Plan Simple. She, as she'll describe to you in today's episode, has come up with a process to help us be more productive by being more feminine. And she shared some really valuable nuggets very authentically on today's podcast. And she is just a powerhouse with a big heart. I think you'll really enjoy this episode. It'll get you thinking about how to balance a successful business, how to make it even more successful using her process while being an incredible mom, while taking care of yourself, while really enjoying your life without the overwhelm, without the guilt. So she's going to talk to us today about feminine productivity. I hope that you love it. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fabienne Show. Today, we have an episode that is right up my alley with a person that I adore. And for many different reasons, one of the many different reasons is that without you, Mia, without your love and the guardrails that you provided me and the deep belief into this podcast that was just an idea for so long, I don't know if it would be what it is today. I just have to say, before we even talk about feminine productivity and how to plan your life simply and really succeed in so many areas of your life, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for your belief in me and your insistence that this podcast had to come to life. I just want to say thank you and welcome. Thanks for being a very special person in my life.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad to be here today.
We could talk about a million things, you and I. We have so much in common. I have had the privilege of being your friend and mentor for quite a few
I
years.
think so. COVID's so weird those years, but I think it's been at least 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. We've decided to talk about feminine productivity today. And I just want you to pick up that thread wherever you want to start. You know my target audience. You know my women because you've been in my community for so long. You know my heart and you know what I'm passionate about. Where did your planning simple, your feminine productivity, where did that begin for you? Take us through the journey of that.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that now that I have the vantage point I have now, looking back, I can see how there was always these threads, as early as probably 9 years old of just being obsessed with time and how it worked. And also being always labeled as sort of, I feel like today somebody would have called me ADD for sure, but I was creative and, I didn't fit into the mold. And I got reflected this to me all the time by teachers and family members. I've always been curious about how to really show up in the world because I never felt I operated in the way I was quote unquote supposed to because I didn't operate in the way everyone around me did. So it just became this sort of lifelong endeavor to really figure out how to get things done in my brain. Entrepreneurship has been this amazing testing ground. I've literally always been an entrepreneur. So I'm not one of those entrepreneurs who has a big corporate thing. I had a job for a year of my life and then I've had 2 companies. It's been this amazing way to really understand how to get things done. And eventually when I had children, how to get things done in a balanced way.
Now, you have 3 or 4 children?
Oh my gosh, I do not have 4. I have 3.
Okay.
I have 3 teenagers and young adults now. It's like a new thing to say, right?
Yeah,
Like when they're in that phase.
You seem to me to be such an organized person. To hear you utter the words, I think I had ADHD, I just don't, knowing you, I just don't see that. It seems like you have your finger on the pulse of how to get everything done.
Well, that's the feminine trick, I think. I mean, that was what I started to really systematize all this, thanks to you. I really started to realize that all the times that I was able to make a really big move and surprise people. I've surprised people a lot in my life, starting as early as deciding to go off to boarding school from New Orleans at age, 10th grade, however old you are, to writing a book. I'm definitely dyslexic. I wrote a book. I transferred my health as somebody who didn't know how to cook. All these things kept happening. When I went back and really looked at what had happened, I slowed way down. I'm good at slowing myself down. I really let an idea infiltrate me. Like it was coming from the inside before I ever sort of uttered a word outside. I was so clear that the path to that one thing, not all the things around me, but that one thing was always, it felt easy, even though the things I was doing were technically difficult for me. So as I really reverse engineered all those moments, they all had these things in common of just that presence. So it was less being organized in the outer way, which I think is a lot of the tactics that we hear, out in the world. It was more really being organized on the inside. And that enabled me to focus in a way that I couldn't figure out how to do from what was being told to me, so more from the outside.
It's almost like you had to translate for your own mind what was happening on the outside in a way that you could understand and connect to it. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I connected to the thing first before I ever understood how to go forth. In connecting so deeply to whatever it was I was about to do, whether it was growing a business or getting healthy, in connecting to it, the next step just kept appearing. It was simple in that way. I wasn't overcomplicating it. I've definitely had moments of overcomplicating things. So there's a comparison that I have. And the second, I think that we have an idea and we sort of step outside of ourselves. We're not operating from the inside, which I think is a feminine quality, like an amazing attribute we have as, women are leading from the feminine. The second I would go out of that, it was very easy to get overwhelmed. There's a lot of people out there who have a lot of solutions for us.
Yeah. The reason Bold Heart Business exists is that so many women are in total complexity around their business and also their lives, how to make sense of being, 6 and 7-figure entrepreneur or on your way there, and managing a house and managing a partnership and a family. It's funny that we should be talking about complexity, because I don't know if you're studying the Gene Keys. And one of my original challenges and gifts is to take something complex and make it simple. So you and I,
mine too. Yeah, for sure.
Hence the concept of leverage for me and Plan Simple for you. I want to address what masculine productivity looks like. The reason I bring it up, because a lot of our listeners of the Fabienne Show are entrepreneurs and have families, and our plates are really full.
Yes.
And I know that for me, when I tried to do the masculine productivity, this push, and get up really early. And I've done the wake up at 5 and the, 6 a.m. club. There's so much value there. But for me, it doesn't seem to work as much that way. I'd love for you to unpack for us what masculine productivity looks like, and then take us into your version of feminine productivity and what you're doing.
So first of all, like the masculine and feminine part can easily be misconstrued as men and women. So I just want to say that it's definitely men can lead with the feminine in terms of figuring out how to get stuff done. There is a little bit baked into what I'm going to say that's how women work. I think part of feminine productivity is honoring the way you work, no matter what that is. Women have 28-day cycles, whether we're cycling or not. We just have longer cycles. And men, literally their system resets every 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the productivity systems that have come into mainstream by men are great because they are everyone resetting on a 24-hour cycle. That's what they're made for. That's what that whole 5 a.m. club is. It's their systems resetting. They get to restart. And the second I realized, wow, actually there is a week where 5 a.m. is great for me. And I'm just going. And that's how I naturally am. And there's a week that I'm so tired and need to rest more, and waking up at 5 p.m. would be a total disservice to my system or to my thinking. And I need to have way more quiet, less seeing of people to be eating and ingesting into my body. That time is my most creative time, right? Mm-hmm. So that 5 a.m. time is a great time to show up to podcasts and give talks and do things. And that quiet time is a great time to get writing done. So it's just not the same every day. But I think a lot of women start to feel almost crazy because we're literally not made for the systems that we're told are quote unquote right. That becomes really hard to navigate, and we feel like we're wrong. And we know from a mind perspective that when we feel we've done something wrong or it's not quite right, or it's harder to take action.
That really hits my heart heavy.
Yeah.
So I'm married, Derek, right? Because
I love Derek.
Everybody loves Derek. Derek is my husband. He's also my business partner and has been for 16 years. Derek, in his strengths, leads with consistency. Yeah. So he is so consistent. He finishes everything he starts. He has energy levels all the time. When I compare myself to him, I feel like 1 week out of the month, I'm on it. I'm productive. Watch me. Then I go off track. I have in the past felt bad about myself, thinking, why can't I keep this up? Why is it that some days I'm productive and, I've written 2 books, but also several programs and 3-day events. And my best writing is between 4 and 6 a.m., but not every day.
Yeah.
So this really lands heavy, like how much time I may have over the years beat myself up, not understanding that I have a 28-day energy cycle, productivity cycle, as opposed to the 24-hour, more, masculine.
Well, there's so many gems in it, which I think is why I'm so passionate right now about having as many people understand as possible, because the thing that is harder for men to have is this quality of more kairos time, of time really bending. Because
tell me what kairos means.
So chronos is very linear. We're showing up. I think that's what a lot of us have understood is the way the 24-hour cycle, and there is some linearness to time. But I think that if we're really aligned, there's this quality of time that doesn't make any sense. Like we go to sleep one night and we wake up and the whole book is written in our head.
Yeah.
If we're pushing ourselves and burning ourselves out and trying to wake up at 4 a.m. when our body doesn't want to, we never have that opportunity to have those downloads. That could be 6 months worth of work for somebody who's operating on a 24-hour cycle, and we go to sleep and wake up with it. It's like a deep connection with somebody because we go into a room and it's like, oh, that's who I need to meet, the right person. There's so many stories. You just can't make that up. That is the feminine at work,
The
actually.
intuitive piece rather than always the pragmatic piece, though the feminine can be very pragmatic, of course.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Technically, as entrepreneurs and as mothers and all the things we do, we're consistently birthing new ideas, right?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite metaphors is, as a woman, we literally release one egg a month, and that egg patiently waits to become a baby. That to me is the feminine. It's just one. It's powerful in that one. We only need one egg to make a baby. Whereas our counterpart is spurting lots of things at the one egg. To me, that is like a very great analogy to the feminine and the masculine, because we don't have to do all the things. If we're really centered, we can just be like that egg. We can just wait. We can be patient. We can work on other things.
If you look at masculine energy, it's an energy of doing action. The feminine energy, as I understand it, is an energy of being, and rest.
Yeah.
Again, we're also constantly in action, but the energy that works for the feminine includes more rest and more being than it does constantly in motion.
Yeah, actually, you served this up to me on a platter once, way early when we were working together. Before you moved to France, I ended up in Connecticut at your house. I just needed permission to write the book, that I wanted you to say, Mia, write the book. It's going to be a bestseller. At the time, I was a little more health focused than productivity focused as I am now. I just wanted you to tell me that. I sat down, and luckily, somebody else you gave that message to, and I knew that that's how the feminine worked. But I sat down and you're like, you've got to heal your relationship with your mother. I was like, what? But I didn't know it then, but I had really dropped into my feminine in that day. Like I had just shown up and was really present and was ready to receive what I needed to receive. That's what came back at me. I didn't do it the next day. I'm not going to lie. But when I did do it, my business tripled in 2 months.
I just want to give some context to those who are listening or watching us on YouTube that I am a permission giver and I'm able to see a bigger future for someone than they can see for themselves, right? You've seen me do it
so many times
on the stage and on, Zoom calls, but I'm also able to see the number one thing that gets in the way of somebody's big things. You and I had a conversation about a month or two ago, and I was like, here it is. So just to bring context, if you're looking to grow your business or you're looking to do something really big in your career or your life and it's not happening, there's usually one thing that gets in the way. And it's usually a mindset thing or a healing thing. So I'm just bringing some context to this because I have this unique ability to see that in other people. And then boom, like you said, triple.
Yeah, the healing, to me, that is a big piece of the feminine, is like we're on this journey to just peel back all the layers, really heal them. Essentially what we're doing is we're healing future generations. That is really important to our families, but also really to the bottom line of our business. I've seen it over and over and over again.
Yeah, this idea, I see people market their businesses till they're blue in the face or hustle. And listen, I love a little hustle, right?
Yeah.
There's
one time a month.
there's time to get into your masculine energy and hustle. And I believe in that. But where most people, women that I work with in their business, have the hardest time is because they're not seeing that it's not the hustle or lack of hustle that's getting in the way. It's this thing. And it's usually a healing thing that needs to happen, an internal thing. And the internal, of course, is the feminine.
Yeah. Well, and on that of the masculine and feminine, I just want to be clear. I'm a productivity coach. I mean, of course, we need the masculine. That needs to show up. We need the masculine often to do the tasks that need to get done. That's super important. But I'm a really proponent with leading with the feminine first, because I think what happens to us is that the world is so loud and so busy. There is no shortage of information that we can get. So it tends to be that we're taking in all this information like a sponge and then making some choice about how many times we have to post on social media or whatever. And then we're going off and doing it alone. I think the feminine is literally flip-flopped. It's like when we're leading with the feminine, we're starting in that centered place, just us. We're like, oh, I need to connect with more people, or, oh, it's time to write that book, or whatever your aha is. And we get that and we connect to it. Then we can be open to then the email that comes in is totally aligned, right? That is literally how I wrote my book. Is I decided I was going to do it. I opened my inbox and the solution was right there in front of me. And then I believe we need the village. So it's just flip-flop. The feminine needs community. The feminine needs a village. That's super important to our well-being. We call our stuff flow. We call it the flow planning system. It has many, many different meanings, have evolved over the years. It started off as an acronym for the different parts of life. But when you think of a river flowing, it's like it has the riverbeds. It's flowing through something. To me, that container, that's the masculine. So the feminine does really well when the masculine is holding it. You have your 24-hour reset amazing business partner, right? Who's letting you be in your amazing feminine. Otherwise, we're a puddle. Right. So if we're only in the feminine without that container, I think it's harder. So there is the dance. We constantly need to be moving back and forth between the two. As a collective, as a society, we missed out on the feminine part. So many of us are having to learn that now.
You may know that I'm launching a membership in the fall. We'll probably be rolling it out in September, if not early October. Right now, the working title of it is Awakening Heart. And
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm glad you think so. Then also a mastermind, although I would never call it a mastermind because it just doesn't seem right. But I've been taking all summer and actually not being productive. I've been thinking, I've been pulling oracle cards, I've been working on the gene keys, I've been talking to friends, I've been working with healers, all of that. Is that just because I want to get clearer and clearer about what I am launching so that it's a direct solution to what so many of the women that I know are seeking? Is that part of feminine productivity, is just being in it and being in the inquiry without pushing? Yeah.
The time piece, the part that you had your whole summer, that was the riverbed. That was the container for which you to flow. There is some masculine energy in arranging that, right? That's the masculine. That's critical. I had a similar summer, so I'm right there with you. One of the reasons that I do what I do is because I think I was always flip-flopping in that way. I was just told that, oh, you're just creative. Like maybe you belong in art school, which I did end up. It was a great place for me, but like maybe just go there. I kept getting told that over and over again. And what I realized is that those transition points back were what were actually hard for me. And I was not held in those. What I needed was to really find that, what I would now call masculine, but I just needed to be held in those moments where I was coming out of summer, which, you know, in this case, we're talking about actual summer, but, you know, we can experience that at any point in the year, and transitioning into the next season. I think women experience real and metaphorical winter all the time, which is more like going in and having a moment where you feel like you really can't show up. It's not very playful and it is deep. And sometimes it's where that shadow work and that dark night of the soul is, but we can emerge from that. I feel like that's where what you and I do and that's where that collective is so important to touch us.
You know, one of the things I've been teaching in Bold Heart is that the masculine is a really linear energy.
Yeah.
And a really solo energy.
Yeah.
The feminine energy, to succeed, needs to be surrounded with, it's a collaborative energy. It's a community energy. If you're listening to this and you want to hear more, if you go to boldheart.com and you look on the tab at the top, you'll see there's a tab that says the film. Yes. There's a 9-minute documentary. You've seen it, Mia.
It's so good.
It's so
I cry
good.
every time. I think I've seen it a few times.
It explains to so many women, it explained to me why I doubted myself in my business for so long in the early days, because I was just applying the masculine energy of business and the masculine productivity, which is solo, linear, but it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
When I got that, I'm like, okay, I need to be around people. This is why women who are around other women, a collective of women who are on the same path, either multiple 6 or 7 figures, or whatever you're doing in your life, you are going to succeed more because you're not alone. Otherwise, you doubt yourself.
Yeah, I think something that's really important to mention, and in my own experience, the lineage of where I came from work was so important. Later on, I did some work around just with the shaman where I understood that in past lives, I literally believed that someone was going to burn me at the stake. So I was literally taking beliefs, which apparently is true for a lot of women who are stepping up to talk. We carry this with us. We carry this belief in our systems. A lot of women are operating in a very masculine model. So there's actually not a lot of real feminine, so safe villages. I've been in yours, so I know you've created that. That's what I've created. There are definitely people who created it. But for anyone who's like, I need more structure, I just think that's what's really surfacing right now is this idea of the collective feminine. And it has not existed before. And there's still a lot of systems that we operate in that don't trust it, that are still operating in a different way. I really believe at my core that that's all shifting. But a lot of us have a lot of doubt. I hear that all the time from people in our community. I just didn't know I could trust women like this.
In culture, we've been pitted against each other, or the concept of us being pitted against each other is so pervasive that we've come to not trust other women, where that's not our nature. Our nature is
not
to
our
lean on
nature.
each other,
Yeah, it's not our nature. And so then people act very strangely around it. And we end up at work meetings where we don't admit we have to go pick up a kid, or, we sacrifice some piece of something that we really wanted because we think we have to show up in a certain way. I believe that when we come into community, we're just held in a different way. We can literally then show up and say no to the person who wants us to meet when we really need to be somewhere else. We get the courage to act in a different way.
I want to just bring this anecdote into this space at this moment. When I was leading my signature program, Leverage, in person, there was a woman who flew from Australia every quarter to be at the quarterly 2-day meetings. And she had another baby, and she brought her mother and her baby. And she would keep stepping out of the room to go nurse the baby. I keep saying, where are you going? She goes, I'm going to go nurse the baby. And I said, no, you don't. You nurse your baby inside this room.
Yeah.
Sure, go in the back of the room, but I want you to not miss anything. And there's this masculine siloing of things. You can't be a mother and scale your business at the same time. It was one of the most beautiful things that I've experienced, is to have a mother nursing very elegantly. Of course, no one was seeing anything, and even if we were,
it didn't matter.
Nature,
Yeah.
But that made me realize that was a turning point for me, that you could blend, we'll use your word, productivity or scaling your business, being in that energy while nursing your baby. I was like, this feels right for me. Really honoring who we are and not saying we didn't have to compartmentalize. I'll never forget that moment.
That's actually literally why I do what I do, because I think what happens when we compartmentalize, and this is what happened to me at the beginning of business, 10 years ago when I was had come into meeting with you, is that food and health was definitely being held in my head. Work was sort of being held in a calendar. All the kids were over on a refrigerator side somewhere. I wasn't even conscious about how important the quieting down the spiritual piece was, even though I was trying to do it. We actually need to think of everything holistically, because that is how we operate. They're all interrelated. What we eat affects how we show up to a podcast interview. How we close out our days affects our relationship with our spouse and how we are with our kids. Like it all, maybe how productive we are the next morning and how we connect with people we're needing to connect to at work. It's all so interconnected for us. Somewhere along the line, some powerful people who weren't clearly women divided it all out, because that's how they think. That is the masculine way.
And they're not wrong.
No, not for them at all.
No,
Yeah.
this is perfect for you. Don't stop.
Yes, exactly. It's just not the way it is, right?
Everyone.
Yeah.
As someone is listening here for the first time about this feminine productivity, how would she approach it holistically? Give us some of the first steps. And of course, you'll give us some resources.
I'll give you all 5 steps. How about that?
Yeah,
Because
great. Awesome.
thanks to you, I have this amazing 5-step methodology and it all works. So in its simplest way, so within each of these steps, there are so many tools already created. You mentioned how your summer was literally all the tools of the first step I'm going to share. But also one of the other things about the feminine, I always think of it more like rhythm than set time. It's an accordion. We always need these things, and sometimes we need more and sometimes we need less. So in order to bring my company to $1 million a year, I needed to do such deep work at a soul level that takes, I'm not going to lie, it took some time. Yeah. But when I sit down to write an email, I still go through this process that involves doing some soul work. So I'll tell you what it is. The first step is always starting from being centered, right? So just making sure that you feel centered in your body. And the simplest way to do that is just taking a breath. I've done this experiment with people multiple times because there are many times, if you really pay attention in a day, where you are not breathing, you are just like running from one thing to the next, and you are not conscious of taking a breath, one conscious breath, I should say, which could take as little as 10 seconds, but you're just getting centered. Sometimes I often close my eyes because I find that when I'm looking around me, that is a cue to go out there instead of in here. What do you need to do to get centered? And again, if it's working on my year-long plan for my company, I might go for an hour to a yoga class, do a longer meditation, right? So again, it's an accordion for how you need to be to show up to the thing. So we start off with centered and then getting into the vision. So really being clear from this centered place, what's my vision? So if I'm sitting down to write an email that affects the book I'm writing, I might envision the book coming out and really aligning with that vision. It could be as simple as, I have 3 things I need to do right now. Maybe they're more in the masculine. That really is the feminine wisdom, understanding what pieces need more attention. So we start with this idea of centering. Centering can be as simple as a deep breath. It can take 10 seconds. It's about going in. I often close my eyes to get centered just because then I'm not paying attention to what's around me and I'm just going in. It can take longer. So if I'm going to sit down and plan my business, or I'm stepping into a week of a big launch, and I might choose to do something longer. In your case, you're stepping into this whole new program. So, you and I actually both took a lot of time this summer to essentially center. So again, the first thing is making sure we always start with center, because otherwise it's really easy to take in all the noise. The second thing is connecting to our vision, bringing it into our body and our heart, connecting energetically to what it is that we want. So our vision could be as simple. 90 minutes from now, I'm going to have written this blog post, and you can see that done. That could be the vision. Or it could be I'm at the beginning of a week and I'm envisioning the outcome of all of these things I'm doing in this launch. We're taking that time to get really clear about our future. What we're doing is we're making a promise to our future self, right? So we want to connect to her. And it's almost she's the one pulling us forward. Our only job is to show up in the present moment as we're like doing the things, and we're sort of letting her pull us forward. So we need to connect with that vision. So center and vision. And then we need to usually make some decisions. So a lot of us start with, okay, there's 50 bazillion ways that I could market myself on social media. You have that beautiful pie. Just choose 2. But you and I know that you could randomly choose any 2 you want, but there's this choice. I find that the choice is much clearer when you've done the centering and the visioning, when you're coming from that place. Of course, I'm going to choose speaking and writing an email once a week or whatever. It's just super clear what it is, and there's no right or wrong answer. So we have
you're probably not grasping at straws. Oh my God, I got to do something.
Yeah. Everything is emerging. The action is emerging from the being energy. So yes, we have to get into action at some point, but it's emerging from a different place, from our centered, connected to our future self version of ourselves. I would say that centering and visioning are feminine things. That is why we call it feminine first. Once we're in decision making, that's a pretty masculine quality. And then the next thing is anchoring it in time. That again is masculine.
Hmm.
But I think that is the biggest thing about the endless to-do list that overwhelms and debilitates many women is that because unconsciously, whether you do this process or not, we're really good at getting centered and imagining things. I'm sure many of your listeners experience that they have no lack of dreams. I believe that when we have a dream or when we have an idea, the universe has our back. It's ours. We can go get it.
You can pull it in as opposed to pushing to get it.
We wouldn't have the idea if we didn't have the capacity or the village or an email wasn't going to come in the next day. We wouldn't get the idea if we couldn't pull it off. Now, we don't have to pull off every idea we have, but because we have it, I believe that we can do it. What happened is that, our brain doesn't understand linear time. When we have an idea, it's like done. What happens is 5 minutes after we have the idea, our whole humanness gets involved and it's, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Somebody when I was 9 told me I couldn't do this. And then I tried it 2 weeks ago and I couldn't do it. All the negative talk that you're so good at helping people overcome comes swooping in. So anchoring things in time can really help see things. So I have a lot of ideas. I'm a big idea
generator. Most of us
are.
Idea
generator. There's no doubt about that. But I have a weekly process that I go to and a daily and every 90 days. I do this quite regularly. I'm flowing things forward. I'll get all the ideas out, but then I decide, I anchor things in time, right? So I do this again, that's why this process works at all the levels. So if I'm planning my year, I might say, okay, around this time, I'm going to launch this product. 2 weeks before, you're going to know exactly what date that is, right?
Sure.
But now you don't. So it's just basically anchoring it in time. In 3 years from now, I'm going to travel to Morocco, whatever it is. Then it has a home. It's almost our soul and our heart can just come down into our bodies. So when I look at my week, there's nothing endless about it because I know what I am showing up to. I know it's connected to my future self. I know that I decided from an aligned place, which is actually a really important piece of the center. I know that it's coming from an aligned piece. Oftentimes we're making decisions from a frazzled energy or an overwhelmed energy.
So
and
true.
That literally creates a different outcome. So that centerpiece can literally create a different outcome. So I anchor things in time. And then the next thing is follow through. Follow through has a bunch of different things in it. I believe a village is very helpful for follow through. But it then becomes this loop of, okay, all I have to do is get centered and this momentum gets created and follow through becomes easier and easier and easier. Oftentimes when we're thinking about planning, we get stuck over in decision making and calendaring. And they're both kind of essential components, but for very specific reasons that tie back to our future self. We need to be in pretty tight relationship with her to really make it feel good.
Yeah, as you've heard me say a million times, you can't scale your business in between client appointments.
Yeah.
You really need to be in a totally different energy than that frazzle going from one appointment to another and pick up the kids and da-da-da. You need these spacious days or half days or 2 days. We meet quarterly for 2 days to be able, that's how we scale so quickly because we notice that the energy is different when we gather in community, have these big ideas, map out the plans, and we're only thinking about our business.
Well, essentially in your meetings, from my perspective, what's happening is we're getting centered. You're always connecting us to our vision. Then we're making decisions because that's what you're coaching on in terms of business. Then we are anchoring in time by the end. So literally we're setting ourselves up for follow through because we're pausing to go through that process, which is really what planning is. I know that we have all sorts of different understandings of what planning is, but that's really what's working on our business.
I just got chills. Of course, I would never have looked at it through, because we're looking at it through your lens of feminine productivity.
Yeah. Well, and I will not, I'm going to give you a lot of credit because when I first landed, I've been in your room a few times and this time I was like really able to scale my business. When I was first in your program, it was that I was switching. I had made a successful graphic design company and I just was being pulled toward this idea of helping people live more balanced lives. Again, I started with the food. And at the time, my now teenagers and young adults were littles, they were little. And I really wanted to be there for them as a mom. Really, I wanted all these things. I would show up frazzled and I wouldn't always show up coachable and ready to receive. As a result, I got overwhelmed until I could figure out this piece of do actually what she says, go get relaxed and work on your mindset. And then the rest will follow. It was what I couldn't figure out at the beginning of this version of entrepreneurship.
What I'm really getting present to in hearing you share your process is that some people could look at this and say, oh, it's so woo-woo or it's so soft. And that's because we live in a really masculine business world. But taking that time to center and taking that time to envision and taking that time to make decisions and following through, et cetera, is the elegant way for us to be productive in our business or in our life. And it's time for that pendulum to shift, for us to honor that this is the gold. These are the juicy bits that will get us to the next level, where 50 years ago, people could have laughed at this and said, oh, that's not going to work. But this is what works now for us.
Well, and it's interesting because I feel like I work with both ends of the spectrum, as you probably do too. I often get very spiritual people who are trying to follow through but then I'll get people who are very good at showing up to their work, but have never seen an oracle card before. I'm always really nervous when those people come in, because at this point, I don't even know if what I'm saying is normal or not. I have no idea. And at some level, those people are so fun to work with because the magic comes in so quickly, because all you're doing is connecting to yourself and getting the answer from yourself. And often it's like burnout is right there. Too much is happening. And it's like that person takes care of themselves in a different way. The power on the other side of that is unbelievable to watch. So yeah, I'm trying to not worry about the woo, because I've just seen how it really, we got to normalize it because it affects women so heavily.
I think it is being normalized without us even noticing.
Yeah.
It's just so much. I didn't realize that sometimes people find me online by putting spiritual business coach, even though up until recently, I'm not sure the word spiritual showed up in any of my.
Fabienne, we've always thought of you that way. That's why we made sure you had a podcast.
Yeah. In fact, I've heard that some people are listening to this podcast because they want to check me out before working with me. I would like to ask you, what is it inside Bold Heart when you're a Bold Heart member?
It's amazing. It's one of those places, because I actually don't think there's so many of them. I just assume this of people right now. So that's where I can see the ripple effect. You just show up as you are and you dive right into the deep end. The second you dive in the room, you instantaneously trust this whole room of women. Mm-hmm. And there's always a connection point. Somebody always has what the other person needs. We are all pretty good at saying it out loud enough that, somebody has just been through that, or somebody's actually specializes in that. I just think that's the way of the woman. That is how we operate. We can keep moving forward, one step in front of the other, which is what I think it's all about. Once we can start taking one step and not get stuck and not freeze.
And not doubt ourselves anymore.
Yeah. Then the world opens up in ways that it's not linear. It is definitely not linear. Your rooms are not linear. It's, I didn't even think that was possible. And then I just got there in an hour.
Yeah, there's this extreme generosity. There's this deep level sharing. There's this trust that you mentioned. And then there's this masculine ambition, if we want to call it that, of we normalize women getting at multiple 6 figures and 7 figures with 3 little kids at home. It's just normal, right?
Yeah. The energy is really at work. I'm going to say something really woo, but this was before even I was in your room the last time. So this was at the end of the first time I was in your room and I had stepped into writing this book. The way that I ended up doing it was launching a Kickstarter campaign, and we raised a lot of money, but we were just a little shy of the end amount. I think we were trying to get to $100,000 and we were a little shy of the end piece. I was like, I guess we can just give it. That's why I turned to my husband, because, if you don't reach it, you don't get it.
Okay.
And I posted something in the Bold Heart thing, and I literally explained it. The energy was coming out of my laptop because 2 people were like, I got this. And they posted, and it was almost like you could feel the energy of the internet at work. All of a sudden, we were surpassing it by thousands of dollars. It was 2 people just stepped in and they really got it. They messaged the people, they did the thing. And it was like you could feel the internet working in a different way. Like, it's really hard to explain, but to me, that really is your room. It was a Saturday morning. It wasn't even a work day. And it was amazing.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
As is your work. Mia, I want people to be able to go check you out. I know you have a gift, a resource for us. Would you explain it?
Absolutely. So the best way to connect with me is to go to our website, which is plansimple.com. And on there, you'll always see sort of what our latest events are. We do a lot of free events. And you can also download our free course, which will take you from overwhelm to ease if that's something that you're eager to do in this feminine way. It basically takes what I just explained about that circle of how we navigate, but it shows you exactly how to implement it to plan each day. So this is the practice I would do to go through it to really understand how you can get exactly what you want done in a day.
We'll put that in the show notes just to make sure that there's a link for you to be able to take advantage of this lovely resource that you're sharing with us.
Awesome.
Mia, if you could share just one final thought or one of your best practices or this personal mantra that you have around feminine productivity or planning simple as we wrap up, what would that be for the person listening today who is really intrigued by what you're sharing with us?
Yeah, I think it's just allowing yourself to just really pause. It's really like the power is genuinely in the pause. And it sounds so dumb as I say it out loud, but if just allow yourself to pause and then make a plan from that pause. So in the pause, you are going to get just data for the next hour or the next season or whatever, and just use what you get in that pause to know that you're on the right path. And I believe that's the feminine way. And that is that is our wisdom.
That's the rest. That's the intuition. That's the being.
Yeah.
That is so crucial to our success.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mia, for this incredible time together. I'm so happy to have spent these few minutes with you. Thanks for being here. Everybody, go to plansimple.com and go enjoy the resources there. Thanks for being here today.